So James, you just dropped a big story.
Yes, sir.
Not as big as a Jeffrey Toobin thing, but you know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Depends upon how big that is.
Before we go in,
Oh my gosh, James.
For anyone that doesn't know, you run Project Veritas.
I run Project Veritas. We're the nation's premier, perhaps the nation's only undercover or even investigative reporting organization. We use video, incontrovertible video evidence, and we just launched a story an hour ago on Google, a Google engineer discussing how the algorithms are skewed to favor Joe Biden in the presidential election.
Cool time.
So we will definitely lead with this, and I've got your website pulled up. We'll look at it. But I'll just add, you may be the only undercover news outlet in the country, and man, do they hate you. But we'll get into all
There's
the
so
fake
much
news
to say about that.
Yeah, so we'll lead with this big story. So we can pull this up real quick just to give people a quick glimpse. But instead of reading through what your website says, you're here, you can tell us. But I'll read the headline. Senior Google manager on search engine's power. You are just plain and simple trying to play God. The power's in the search. Trump says something, misinformation. You're going to delete. If a Democratic leader says that, then you're going to leave it. So how about you just tell us what's going on? What's this breaking story?
Well, this is a guy, Ritesh Lakhar, technical program manager at Google, and he works for the cloud. And he's talking about he's kind of an unwitting whistleblower. He talks about how the corporation plays God, and I'm reading here, like if it was fraud, it doesn't matter, but for Trump or for Melania, it matters. On the other side, Trump says something, misinformation. You're going to delete that because it's illegal or whatever pretext. He talks about the double standard. It's something we all suspect to be true, but if he says if a Democratic leader says that, then you're just going to leave it. And he talks about how the corporation Google is outsourcing jobs in order to spy on Americans, and he feels guilty about this. And he describes the algorithm, how people cry in the corridors of Google when Trump won. So a lot of what Veritas does is confirm suspicions, right? None of this is surprising to you, but it may be one of the first times you've ever heard them say it as a current employee. That's why we use hidden cameras. People are more honest. Sometimes the newsworthiness is such that people talk about the ethics of recording maybe a good man saying this, but the public's right to know is paramount. It's important that we show this information to the masses.
This guy says something about training Chinese people to spy on America and something like that. What was that?
He says in this tape that he feels guilty. He feels, quote, suffocated at Google, and particularly guilty for outsourcing jobs overseas in order to spy on the American people. And one point in the conversation, we ask, why is it that Google prefers Democrats? And his answer, well, this is America. So very, very enlightening video. And this is part one of a series of videos. We'll release a video every day this week on Google, different employee.
I tweeted out your video, and the first responses from people was,
can't see it.
I can't see it. It's unavailable. Sean.
So there's a tweet that I've been getting the same thing sitting here right now, and it says, quote, this tweet might include sensitive content. To view it, you need to change your privacy settings.
You know what I love? I love the irony of you literally exposing manipulation, interference, and censorship, and then they censor you. It's the perfect. I always say this: the best way to describe irony, to define irony, is a fire truck on fire. Like that's irony. Like the fire truck is supposed to put the fire out, not in flames. You're exposing these big tech companies, and they're actively shutting you down in real time.
They're actively doing it. They've always done it. But we have a saying at Project Veritas: content is king, right? So, you just got to do the good work. You got to expose it. You got to put it out there. Get proxies to put it out there. We embargo clips with people ahead of time. Sometimes I do that with you, Tim. I'll share a little link.
It's true.
And that's why the New York Times called it a misinformation campaign, because we were embargoing clips with people ahead of time, which is what reporters always do.
Yep.
But that's why I brought this book with me, 1984. If you haven't read it since you were 15, reread the book, listen to it on Audible, whatever you do.
That looks like it's a 1984 printing.
It looks,
too.
I think this is my high school book that I took.
So the embargo thing is important too, because that it is extremely common. People don't realize it, and the New York Times tried smearing you simply because you did it.
Simply because we did it. This is something we should talk about at some point. I can mention it now. The New York Times talked to researchers at Stanford University, interviewed them, and they said, well, it's probably part of a disinformation campaign because James O'Keefe shared it with the My Pillow guy 2 days before.
Is that who
I
you
met
shared it
with Mike Lindell because he's a big-time deal in Minnesota. He's a Minnesota guy, and we're doing a Minnesota story. He's got a big following. Hey, Mike, here's a tease of what we're doing. And Stanford University told the New York Times, well, that's the reason it's probably disinformation. USA Today quotes the disinformation part, and suddenly Facebook is censoring the video because USA Today says it's disinformation. Straight out of Orwell.
So I don't know what else there is to say about you've got another guy. It's not the first time you've caught somebody. But here's what's crazy to me. We've seen other videos like this. The Verge, actually, I think it was The Verge who published this video.
Yes.
Where you see them giving a meeting about Donald Trump won, and we're all scared and sad.
Yeah.
And people are crying. That was a left-wing publication. You also had Gizmodo. This was back in, I think, 2018,
Yeah.
where they wrote one of the first stories saying Facebook actively censored conservative news websites.
Yes. And
You confirm all this, and it's misinformation. They publish it. No, it's fine.
Well, I think it's the courage to continue doing it. There's so much cynicism and hopelessness. We were talking last night about how cynical people are, and I think you just have to keep going. I really do, because you get caught in a trap of being defensive, like responding to their bias and whining about them. And what I found is if you just keep reporting, they keep attacking me, I just keep reporting, and I think the audience that you're serving right here, this stream right now, and the audience I serve, these are new audiences. These are people who don't necessarily watch CNN or maybe even watch Fox News. They're just people that are being enlightened little by little. And the truth is, Tim, I think we're winning. I mean, I think I've got more sources coming to me than ever before. The sources tell me I've got no place else to go. They say I can't go to the New York Times. I can't go to USA Today. I don't even know what USA Today is, except write pieces about us.
So let's do this. I think I'm gonna really enjoy ragging on the media, but we should give that.
We should talk about other
So
things.
let me do this. You've exposed this. You had another video of a director at Google talking about censorship. That woman, I forgot what her position was.
What was the name of the woman at Google? The Irish woman.
You've had a couple.
Jen Janai?
So Jen Janai. The big one was Jen Janai saying we need to have algorithmic fairness.
Yeah.
Because God forbid you Google search something and you get reality or facts. So what if the facts are unfair? So what we have to do is censor the reality such that it makes the world more fair. Who defines fair? We don't know. And then Jen Janai says, we got to prevent the next Trump situation. This is what Janai says, who's a senior individual at Google, head of innovation, Google's innovation department. So when she said we have to prevent the next Trump situation, was it a smoking gun? Not quite, because what did she mean by that? Now she'll say, on the Medium, she wrote an article, no, I meant stop Russian interference in the election.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll say whatever they need to say to explain away their comments on the tape.
Have you seen The Social Dilemma?
Just a few minutes downstairs.
Yeah, we were playing just a bit of it downstairs. And what's really interesting is they basically confirm everything you've got on camera. You've got former tech executives. They don't go as deep as to say, yeah, when we were there, we were like, we're gonna make sure the Democrats win. But they were straight up saying, we manipulate people into doing what we want them to do. We figure out how to persuade them into doing what we want them to do. And then I see stories like that. So in the documentary, they have this mock version of political extremism called the Extreme Center and Don't Vote, like these two groups that are fighting each other. But it's very clear that they're straight up saying social media companies are encouraging, are favoring political factions or institutions. And considering we're seeing something like this, it reminds me of what we heard from the CEO of Reddit. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but he actually said, I'm confident Reddit could sway an election. We wouldn't do it. Then what do? Now they're actively censoring, conservatives, Trump supporters. So we're seeing this kind of thing just basically across the board. I guess I would just ask you, we have the story, all right? So, I don't know what else
to say about it.
To say about, this one individual. So I'm going to ask you to, with all of the exposés you've done on Google so far, give us the big picture of what's happening with Google, with Facebook, with Twitter, from this story to the other stories you've done.
Right. Well, and I think video, I said this many times, video transfixes in a way that words don't. So kind of hearing these people talk about how they do this and what they do with the first with the Google clip we were talking about a moment ago, a woman said we got to prevent the next Trump situation. This guy saying it seems they favor Democrats with their algorithms. It's becoming more obvious. It's becoming more clear that there is no shame on these platforms, and I think the recent New York Post story was a good example of that, where it's no longer you need a hidden camera. They're just doing it out in the open. And I still believe that if the story is good enough, it can circumvent the powers that be, because people are hungry for real, raw, enlightened information. So that's my premise. If that premise is off, or if that's wrong, then maybe this escalates into the next DEFCON stage, which is civil unrest in this country. But I still believe fundamentally that people are intelligent enough to be receptive to real and raw information, like you're seeing with Project Veritas. And what's more, Tim, is, and I can't emphasize this enough for your show, Veritas's vision is insiders and whistleblowers coming public. Brave people. That's why our motto is be brave, do something. So when I do something like this, what happens is 6 Google insiders will contact me and say, hey, bro, I've seen this. I don't want to lose my job, but here's a, encrypted. And then it's like this army of people, because they can stop one man, but they can't stop 1,000 people. You know what I mean? It's like this whole idea of an army, 1,000 insiders sending information at the same time.
Well, this guy, Ritesh, I feel bad for him. I mean, he's going to get a lot of unwanted attention. He's being honest.
Yeah.
You know, he says in this clip, what does he say? If Trump wins, there'll be riots. If the left wins, they'll be ecstatic.
Yes.
I mean, he's being honest about what's happening in this country. He tells you, candidly what's happening. I feel bad because, I don't want this guy to go through any hardship or anything because of this. The problem is, what happens when no one is willing to step forward and tell you what's actually happening and they're actively participating in it?
The ethics of, I had this conversation with a guy named Eric Weinstein on his podcast for like 2 hours about this ethics of blurring face. Very fascinating, very, very, intellectual conversation. But I was telling my staff that, Ernest Hemingway once said, what is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. Morally defensible journalism is rarely what you feel good about afterward. It is only that which makes you feel better than you would otherwise. So it's like eating coal in the forest to help your stomach. It never feels good, but you feel better after you do it. Undercover work is tough. People don't like it. It's like you're filming someone without them knowing. Sometimes they're good people, sometimes they're bad people. In this case, this guy is probably some combination of somewhere in between.
Right.
But the public's right to know is paramount. And we're better off for knowing this information. I don't like harming people. That's not the intent of this. We're not trying to shame people. We're trying to, the public, what's more important than a monopoly on a search engine telling you we're trying to elect this guy? Right. Nothing's more important than that. So, and it's a public place or in a restaurant. So it's a very interesting ethical conversation, I suppose. But I think we need more of this sort of thing, not less of it.
I agree, though. Yeah. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. And we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.